Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode number 26 of Creative Writers and Illustrators. And my guest for the day is storyteller Usha Venkatraman, who's out with a brand new book, Silapathar Sisters Visit to the Beach. So this is the very first one, right? So welcome, Usha.
Thank you, Shamla. Hi, how are you? And hello, everybody out there.
So quickly tell us what this book is all about before I ask you some questions.
Okay, great, Shamla. Thank you for inviting me to be a guest on your platform. Like you said, this is the cover of the book, Silapathar Sisters Visit the Beach. Now, this is a book with a lot of pictures and illustrations, which are riveting and very nice and tells the story, actually. So Silapathar Sisters, Silapathar is a small town in Assam where I grew up, where I kind of was homeschooled. So we are three sisters and we were called the Silapathar Sisters. So hence the name, because the story is, I would say, real and little bit of fiction. So there is a mixture of real and fiction in the story. In fact, I would say everything is real because the story is about animal rights, animal advocacy, speaking up for the animals. And I worked with an animal activist organization called Ahimsa way back in the year 1997-98. And I happened to go all around the city of Bombay and would do street stories with puppets about animal advocacy, talking about the characters that you will find in my book today. So I had to create a story around the theme of animal advocacy. So I created one. I wrote the script way back in 1998, and somehow the pandemic made it possible for me to come out and publish a book on the same story because the topic is still relevant, right? In the pandemic, so many people were adopting pets. So I just thought the time was right for me to come up with the book.
You know, as a storyteller, I always thought your first book would be something around mythology, and you're a singer as well. So I thought it would be something around music, and you've done puppet shows, news stories. So I thought it would be something along those lines. So I was pleasantly surprised when you chose, something for animal welfare. So did you ever think this was going to be your first book, or did you have plans for something else? I think we discussed this at some when we met years ago. So I know that something has been in the making, but I was not sure if this is what you had in mind right then.
No, I already have written Silapathar Sisters Learn Indian Classical Music. Because as you know, Shamla, I'm a trained classical Carnatic vocalist. And my first book story that I wrote was on classical music because I worked on that subject way back in 1996. How can I teach classical music to young children? How do I introduce Shruti and Laya, melody and rhythm? So I have, and that is a very musical storytelling with puppets. So hopefully that will be my second book. Because that has a lot of work involved, and this book was easier. You know, somehow, you plan for something else, but something else takes over. So that's the story, but stay tuned for the next one, which will surely come.
So the characters are real, it's based on your sisters, and there's Luna, who's your pet. But what about this experience on the beach, which kind of triggers the main characters into taking proactive action? So was that a lived experience, or was it because you were, into doing so much of activism that you came across something which kind of triggered the story idea?
That's a good question, Shamala. When Ahimsa approached us, when Dr. Satna Mahuja, to whom I have credited, for actually bringing this story alive, because when she approached me and said, could you do this, promote this in a story? So we based it, because where would you see monkeys? Where would you see horse? And also fish. Now, all these we incorporated, and I thought the beach is the best place where in the year 1990s, you would find horses and monkeys and bears at the beaches in Mumbai, where they would entertain people, and one would have to pay money to the juggler or the madari, or, the one handling and going for a horse ride. So hence, at that time itself, it was visit to Juhu Beach. So the characters were different. It was a young boy and girl, and there was definitely the Sutradhar, who was different. Like here, the Sutradhar is Bahadur. So there was another character which the organization wanted me to use. So I used that, but this was changed, because when you write a story, then you bring in other characters, and Bahadur is very much a part of Silapathar sisters, because he was with us in Assam, and he was originally from Nepal and came to live with us in Bombay as well. And he was like a family member, So all the characters are real. The only person I would say who is not real is Adi, because I don't have a cousin named Adi. So Adi became the fictional character, and he is the one introduced. And Luna is, I love to say that she's my granddaughter, which she is. She is the golden doodle, which my daughter Radha has. So she lives very much in New York, and I'm actually spending my holiday season with Luna in New York. So she became the inspiration, I would say, triggered me to write this book.
So there are a lot of songs. I noticed you managed to incorporate a few songs, Amma songs, and that's like around every emotion, like frustration, anger, sadness, and just fear. And it's also about, these songs give a lot of comfort and strength.
Yes.
Were these originally in English, or like were they in Tamil and you translated them, or did you create them on your own, or was it something you kind of, it's your mother's songs which have kind of made their way into?
No. Though we do have sayings in Tamil about these things, but they're not translated. This was something that I sat down and I wanted to put these down. And my editor, that is Geetanjali Chandrasekharan, who was a former editor of Sunday Midday and who's now fully gone into Tailored, where it's a publishing house where she writes stories. She customizes story for people. If you want a story to be written for your children. So she brought in these lines and gave, I would say, birth to these lines. I had some of them, but she put them in that a sequence of emotion and, rhyming words, or just a couplet, so that it kind of conveys the emotion and how you can solve that. When you're angry, all you do is take a deep breath and count from 1 to 100. Because everyone knows about taking a deep breath and drinking a glass of water. And fear is, think of times when you are happy. And frustration is like, is that frustration of the children are angry when they're unable to go to the beach. And then there is fear when they meet. And there is, of course, the frustration that what should they do to help these animals? So, it's like Amma's wisdom telling them, look around and you'll find an adult who can help you.
Right.
And these are the things as a storyteller, I've been incorporating these into my stories. When I talk about web smart, it's always good to look around for an adult to help you, when you find something that is not right, and you find that it's suspicious. So these are things that are incorporated from daily life, you know. And also when they feel sad, when the animals go to the animal shelter. So, you know, that is the thing, that when you're sad, when you know, when you feel scared, I'll just read out that. Yes. So the children are very sad to see the monkey and horse go to the shelter. So they remember Amma's song, that remember about the sun, that after every tired night comes a day of fun. You know, think about something bright and warm so that it makes you feel happy, because emotions can be countered, right? And this book also teaches children that it's very simple to counter emotions. How can you do that? So they don't need an external element or something to make them change their emotions. They can do it by themselves. So this is more to empower the children.
I think it's the need of the hour, because children have so many challenges, and there are only X number of ways in which you can communicate them effectively to kids.
Absolutely, because the pandemic the children have gone through all these emotions. They are scared. They don't understand why to wear a mask. You know, they are disappointed. They are angry. They are anxious, and they are also excited. You know, how do you release the excess energy? So the end, when they are super excited, you know, when they have come, then Amma again says, you know, take a deep breath, count from 1 to 10, squeeze your body, and then do it again, because it's difficult to be calm, right? Children are super excited when they are at home. And I just spent a weekend with my grandkids, grandniece and nephew in Washington. And for 2 years to keep children at home is not easy. So how do you teach them? It's very easy to get them to watch TV or to give them a cell phone and for them to play around, but to engage them, you know, into things is not easy. So I think this also is, like you said, the need of the hour, how you can manage your emotions.
You know, I like Bahadur the handyman's words, you know, or the rule of thumb, what you call, if it ain't good for you, it ain't good for the animals. So where does that fit into the story, and how do you interpret it as a supporter of animal welfare?
See, this is inviting the audience, children, since this is a children's book, asking them to think how they would feel if they were treated like the animals. How would they feel if they were put in cages? How would they feel if they were chained? You know, how would they feel if they were not fed properly? How would they feel if they had a rope through their nose? So, if it ain't good for you, it ain't good for the animals too. That is the mantra. That is, whatever is good for you, it's the same for everyone around, every living being in this planet. You know, so that children not only think about themselves, but there is the scope for compassion and looking around and imagining what it would be for an animal or for anyone else, for the next person, say for a street beggar, for a child or a lame person. You know, how would they? It's just imagining them in the place of that other person and thinking, putting themselves in the shoes of the other. So in fact, Shamla, I have a little note for teachers. You know, it's like that's an ancillary to the story. It's like, when I take it to the schools, I plan to share it with the teachers as to how they can use this book in teaching concepts, how they can also use this story in the other academic areas. So there are little exercises and discussions and how one can explore this into various activities in the schoolroom.
That's wonderful. So, as a storyteller, you're exposed to so many, I mean, you've read hundreds of stories, right? But now, how was the experience of sitting down and writing this story? I mean, you wrote it in 98, and now 23 years later, you revisited the story and ensured that it gets published. So was the process easy of sitting down and writing it when compared to telling a story? Because you only have so many words.
Right. So this is a story which is very dear to my heart, like I said, and I am a spoken artist. I am a spoken word artist. So for me, the spoken language comes very easy. But I realized that the spoken word is different from the written word. So that's where my editor, my publisher, even my illustrator, they came in and said, yours is that easy breezy, like you're telling a story. But this is not telling, this is writing. So, so I realized that there is a difference between writing and telling. So my first thing, and may not fit in with all the, cross the I's and the T's of writing a children's book. But then it's a story from the heart, and we all sat down. Sangeeta Bansali of, Vakils gave me her suggestions. Niloufer gave me her suggestions. And of course, Gitanjali, my editor, being a journalist. Now you come from a journalistic background. You are not from a publishing house where you're editing children's book, you see. So it's a first time for us. So we got all the information, we sat down, gathered all the suggestions, and then made the changes. And it was an exciting process. I mean, I understood that writing a book, writing a story is easy because most of my stories are adapted, but I don't write down. I write the salient points and I use the words to express, right? But writing is different. So when you do that, so we had to tone down and then, come, and my stories are filled with songs. So if I were to tell this story, it would be different. Of course, the subject and the matter and the content would be the same, but I would intersperse it with music, and maybe more dialogues and things like that. And if I use puppets, they would come into play. So the monkey entering into a dialogue with one of the kids, and the children turning around and looking at Bahadur and wistfully looking. Now when I tell the story for varying age groups, I can change my language and tone. So here I had to keep the language simple and the tone simple for children, since it is for any children aged 3 and above, because Indian kids today are very smart. I mean, some of them know to read and they listen to stories. And this story can be told within 5 minutes, can be stretched to about 15 minutes as well.
Yes. And even longer, because with the songs, I guess, you add rhyme and rhythm, and there are so many elements you can.
Yes.
So Niloufer Wadia has done a fabulous job bringing the story to life. So, I think as a storyteller who's been working with puppets, it must be, easy for you to visualize how you're going to tell the story using the puppets. Was the transition easy to just let go of the visualization aspect to an illustrator and let Niloufer do the exploration?
Absolutely. Niloufer had the complete freedom, but before when I approached Niloufer, I gave a list of how the characters should look, because the sisters are us three. Bullu, Bablu, and Suba are very much alive. I mean, that's my pet name, Bablu. I'm the middle one. So Bullu is my elder sister and Suba is my younger sister. So even how we looked, with the curly hair, with the straight hair, with all that, and how Amma would look in a sari. So Niloufer said, does Amma have to be in a sari? Can I, dress her up in salwar kameez? I've never seen my mother in a salwar kameez. I said, of course. But a bindi has to be there. If you can get flowers, just to give that. And Luna is a golden doodle. How would a doodle look?
Right.
And Adi was completely left to Niloufer's imagination. But Bahadur is the handyman, and how he would. So the beach, what all the things, all that was Niloufer's. But we sat and talked about it, not so much, because since this was a book published by myself, it's a self-published book, Shamla, so we had the freedom to do what we want. We didn't have a word count of only this much. Niloufer said, Usha, it's going to cost you the more pages, more illustrations. I said, go ahead. I want this story. This is, close to my heart, and I want to bring it out. So that's exactly, and she's done beautiful illustrations, fabulous. I've seen her work. I saw her Instagram page, and I didn't approach anybody else. In the beginning, when Gitanjali came on board, she was the first one on board. She said, I have a young student who's an illustrator. But then she was raw and new. And somehow the illustrations didn't gel with my story. You see, when you're very young, you're just in the design school. So I happened to hear about Niloufer from a very dear friend of mine. And then I straight away approached. She said, illustration artists, expensive. I said, so what? It's okay. So I approached and she said, yes, I'll do it. And that was it. And Sangeeta is a very dear friend. Her son and my son went to school together in Mumbai. And I know her since 1996, actually, when my children started school. And so did her son. So I asked her, she said, and she went through the script and she said, I like it. I'll do it, but can I make a few changes? Can I give you suggestions? I said, of course, go ahead. So, everything fell into place. And I had the best team, I would say, with Gitanjali, with the years of experience of editing a newspaper, newsprint, articles. Of course, but that's a story too, right? And then she had got into tailored a year or two back, which was actually on a very small scale. So, and with that, I said, let it all be newbie people, and then we do this. So, and it was a wonderful experience, and everything just fell into place and everything worked out.
Right, lovely.
Yeah.
So I'm very glad you brought out this book. I'm eagerly waiting for the next one. This book is published in India by Vakils, Feffer, and Simons Private Limited. And it's also available in hardback?
No, hardbound is a little more expensive. So I got the hardbound edition, but definitely can be given because we have printed a lot of copies and Vakils has stored it in their storage premise. And we've launched this on Amazon India. So definitely people can go online and Shamla, I can share the link with you. Yes, and that too you could share with your readers so that they could go. And I would love it if they could post a review of the book because we have one child's review. I haven't gone and seen if there any other review right now, but I've asked people who have read the book, who've got it from Amazon, to review the book, because it's always nice to get an opinion. So I would like you to review the book as well, and then put it on the site, and then promote it, because I haven't done an active promotion. So I plan to come back to India in January in Bombay, and then I will start, approaching schools, and of course do a small launch. Right now the book is available at Kitab Khana as well as at Kahani Tree and on Amazon website, India. And so basically by word of mouth, and I'm a storyteller. So when I tell stories, this could be one of my stories. And then the book is there. Those who want to, can buy it. And it's like you said, it's beautifully illustrated. It has all that Mumbai Central Station. And the children waiting for the Rajdhani Express, and you can see the coolie. The illustration tells more. You don't need words there. So a child can pick up the book and tell their own story by looking at the picture, even if they don't understand the print word. That's the beauty of picture books. You would know more about it.
Yes. Yeah. So thank you so much, and all the best. So viewers, do check out this book on Kahani Tree and Amazon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shamla. Thank you so much for inviting me.